Chapter 6. We go to the eye. When I woke up, the sleeping bag on the lilo was on the floor next to my bed. It was empty. I looked out of the window to do a weather check. The sun shone. The anticyclonic pattern of the recent days continued. Barometers would be set to dry and fair, and isobars would be far apart, just as I'd predicted yesterday. I found Salim with Cat in the bathroom. He had Dad's razor blade in his hand and was shaving off the faint hairs on his upper lip and laughing at the same time. "But I thought it looked good, Salim," Cat said. Salim turned and winked at me. "Thing is, the more you shave it, the more it grows back. It's like lawn mowing." This made Cat hoot with laughter. When owls hoot, it doesn't sound like humans laughing, so I don't know why people say hoot, but they do. Nor could I see any logic in hairs or grass growing longer by being cut off. But I laughed too, because I wanted to be Salim's friend. Then I ran a finger over my own upper lip. There were no hairs there, and this was good. I wasn't sure about the idea of hairs growing on my face. For one thing, shaving is dangerous. Dad often comes out of the bathroom with bits of blood-drenched toilet paper stuck to his skin. For another thing, facial hair is a sign that we have evolved from apes. And when you remember that we evolved from apes, you have to admit how limited human intelligence is mostly. Then we had breakfast. I had 43 shreddies. Cat had toast, and Salim started on a bowl of cornflakes, but didn't finish it. Then we left the house with Mum and Aunt Gloria walking behind us, taking up a storm. This is one of my favourite things people say. It doesn't mean they were arguing, which is what it might sound like. It means that they were talking non-stop and not paying attention to anything else around them. When storms happen, it's hard to pay attention to anything else. Cat and Salim and I walked in front together. I was on the side nearest the curb, hopping across the cracks in the paving stones and around the lampposts, with my hands in my pockets, which is how I like to walk best when I'm with other people. Then we passed the barracks. Salim said how huge it was, and I said it had 24 stories, and Cat said it would be flattened any day now by our dad. "Never," said Salim. "Yeah," said Cat. "Why has it got to go?" Dad said it was full of drugs and needles and suicidal mums and cockroaches. Yuck! Yeah, and the postman wouldn't deliver things there anymore. Salim looked up at it. Some height. Then Cat pointed to another big tower. "That's where our mums work, Salim. Guy's Tower." "No way!" "Yep." The tower was silver and tall, and I could see Salim was impressed with London, because he looked at the tall buildings with his eyes wide open and his mouth open. Then we had to go down onto the tube. Cat and Salim sat next to each other, and I sat 2 seats down because of 2 strangers. I folded my arms across my chest to stop my hands flapping and shaking, which is a habit Mr. Shepherd says I must lose. I stared at the tube map of London. It's a topological map. A topological map is a very simplified map, not to scale, so with no relation to the real distances. The stop stands for places where you can get on and off, or sometimes change trains, and these are ordered into straight lines with junctions, whereas, in reality, they are all higgledy-piggledy. If I'd been next to Salim, I would have talked about different kinds of maps and explained how topological maps should never be confused with topographical maps. But when I looked over to where Salim was sitting, Cat was showing him the silver nail polish on her fingernails and asking him about his social life, which is a thing she always talks about. I tried to see if he was bored. When people are bored, Mr. Shepherd said the muscles in their face don't do anything and they stare without really looking. And he says I should always check to see if this is how people are looking when I talk to them. Salim was laughing and nudging, so I just decided that it was not bored, though I would have been. We got out at Embankment Station so that we could walk over one of the Golden Jubilee bridges and see the view. The sky was blue, the river was grey, the eye was white. The capsules moved so slowly they hardly seemed to move at all. Halfway across the Thames, Salim took an old-fashioned camera, the kind where you have to use a film, from his pocket. "That's an interesting camera, Salim," Cat said. "My mum gave it to me going to New York. I wanted a digital one, but she says this kind will make a better photographer of me in the long run." Then he snapped everything in sight, including one of Cat and me together with the London Eye behind us. After he clicked, his mobile phone rang with its James Bond theme tune. He leaned over the bridge's rails and spoke into it like a spy on a 00 mission, as if he didn't want anyone to overhear. "That phone of yours," Aunt Gloria said when he'd finished the call and folded the mobile away. "Who was it this time?" "Just a friend, Salem said, calling from Manchester to say goodbye. Let's keep going, we're running late. Late for what, Salem? I asked. Late for the wheel. You can't be late for the wheel, I said. It turns all day long, 2 times an hour, every hour, until dark. Big Ben donged 11 o'clock as we reached the ticket queue, which was very long. The 2 mums groaned. It's infinite, Mum said. No, it's not, I said. Infinity. Why don't we come back later and go to the tape first? Aunt Gloria said. You promised, Salem shouted. He stamped his foot and his eyebrows went down over his eyes. Salem's right, Mum said. We did promise, Glow. Let's stick to last night's plan. Here, Cat, take this. She handed Cat some money and larger notes. You get the tickets and Gloria and I will sit at the cafe over there and wait. When you've got them, we'll join you in the queue. Cat's eyes went large and round as she took the money. She put it carefully away in her leopard skin backpack. Then she, Salem and I found the end of the ticket queue and joined it. A lady in front asked the lady in front of her if she knew how long the wait was, and the lady, 2 people up the queue, said it was half hour to get tickets and another half hour to board. A whole hour, Cat groaned. Maybe that is too long. Cat, I said, an hour is the drop of an eternal ocean of time. This is what Father Russell at our church said once about the human lifespan. Salem grinned. Too right. He took out his camera again and did another shot from where we were standing. I asked if I could take one. Don't let him, Salem, Cat said. Ted's useless at stuff like that. You'll end up with paving stone and half a trainer. But Salem didn't listen. He gave me the camera and I aimed through the viewfinder of the crux where the wheel. It jogged when I pressed the button. I took the camera away from my eye to see a man walking towards us. He wore an old leather jacket, unzipped, and a black t-shirt with writing on it. But I didn't notice what it said. He was dark-haired with an afternoon shadow on his chin, which is what Dad says he gets at weekends when he has a day off shaving. As the stranger drew near, he threw a cigarette to the ground and stubbed it under his heel, for which he could have been fined £1,000 for dropping litter, but nobody seemed to notice apart from me. He came right up. Excuse me, he asked, are you looking for a ticket? Cat explained that we were queuing for 5 tickets. The strange man said he'd give us one if we'd liked. He said he was near the front of the queue to board, but he'd changed his mind. He just couldn't face it. You can't face it, said Salem. He stared at the ticket in the man's hand and then up at the eye. I'm claustrophobic. I'd pass out being stuck for one of those perspex pods. Forgetting that, it's wrong to speak to strangers. The pods are made of steel and glass, not perspex. That's worse! Glass? No thanks. The glass is reinforced. It's very strong and safe. So you don't want your ticket? Salem interrupted. It's yours for the taking. The strange man held it out. It's the 11:30 boarding. That girl over there, he turned and pointed to a girl in sunglasses and a pink fluffy jacket, is holding my place. They'll be boarding soon. Salem turned to Cat. What'd you say? Dunno, said Cat. Mum said to get tickets for everyone. It's a very nice offer, but my hand was shaking itself out because I just had to remember you're not supposed to speak to strangers or accept gifts off of them. But Salem had his hand up, saying, well, none of us will get up there at the rate this queue is moving, said Cat. I could see was weighing things in balance, which means she was deciding what to do. As the oldest, she was in charge. Okay, she said. Mum and Auntie Glow will be glad to save the money, I bet. Not to mention the time. And Ted and I have been up already. You take it, Salem. You're the guest. The man handed over the ticket and led us over to where he'd been standing in the queue. My hand shook itself out because this meant I would be flying the eye the day after all. And it was down to a stranger with an afternoon shadow whom we shouldn't have even talked to. Have fun, the man said, smiling. Thanks a million, said Salem. The edges of his lips nearly reached his ears. Cat and I kept Salem company in the queue until we got to the man who collected the tickets, who was shouting, 11:30 boarders, step this way. Salem gave up his free ticket and winked at us and laughed. Then he went with a group of people to the zigzag ramp at the eye's entrance. We'll meet you by the exit, Cat called. Over there. Salem nodded. We saw him through the glass advancing up the gangplank until he'd become a shadow. He reached the spot where the pod doors opened and closed, and his silhouette gave us a last wave. Then he hurried on with several others. I counted how many got on. 21, including him. The pod door closed behind them. I looked at my watch. It said 11:32, May 24th. He'll be down at 12:02, I told Kat.